Most practice owners are convinced that their growth problem is a lead problem or a pricing problem. But the uncomfortable truth? Most high-ticket cases are lost in the quiet 10 minutes of the consultation by providers who can inject flawlessly but can't carry a room. Welcome back to the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm your host, Don Adeesha, and to help us close the gap between brilliant clinician and a fully booked one, we're joined by none other than Dr. Mark Tager. Dr. Tager is the CEO of ChangeWell Incorporated and the creator of The Art of the Healthcare, proving that presence is not a personality you're born with, it's a skill you can install. So today we are discussing why the most technically gifted injector is so often the weakest closer. We're going to talk about how to diffuse, let me think about it in real time, and how to carry that same magnetic presence onto the camera where today's patients are actually deciding. This episode is brought to you by Aqua Marketing, the growth partner behind this podcast and a trusted resource in the aesthetic community. Dr. Tager, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start inside the room, Dr. Tager. Picture the patient who already walked in, already sold. They'd researched you, they wanted the treatment, money wasn't really the issue, and they still left without booking. When you replay that consult in slow motion, what's the precise moment the provider lost them?
I'm going to take issue with your terms, they're already sold. They're not sold, they're investigating and watching and learning and trying to determine whether you are the right person for them to place their faith and trust in. And for me, this comes down to what I call an issue of presence, practitioner presence. I'd like to very briefly go, and I'll take just a couple of 2 minutes, to go through a model that we use when we think about presence. You'll see how this relates to quote unquote being sold. So presence is different from mindfulness. You know, we hear a lot about mindfulness, which is wonderful. Breathe, let it flow. But in the healthcare setting, you have attention and intention. You have to pay attention to your patient. But you have an intention, and I'm going to come back to that. There are a set of skills that you need in order to be a great clinician, and there is passion. And then, why are you doing this? Well, you have an intention. Now, if your intention is to sell, then that is the wrong intention, because we all know when we're being sold. The real outcome of presence is to light up new possibilities in the minds and hearts of your prospect or your patient. So if you think you're trying to sell them, you know, some syringes of filler or some syringes of a neurotoxin or the greatest body shaping treatment, you're making a mistake. What you're trying to do essentially is to attend to them, be there, have your intention be lighting up possibilities, and learn the skills of really good listening, of attending to body language, of leaning in, of trying to mirror and relate and have resonance with your patient, have passion for what you're doing, all of this in service of new possibilities for them.
Now, Dr. Tager, staff often blames the cheap patient. How much of this lost moment is actually the patient's budget versus the provider's lack of intention?
I think there are always budget considerations for people, but I'm really amazed how in the old days, people would come into a practice, let's say, that does both insurance and cash pay, and they would argue with the receptionist about a $30 or $40 copay. But then they would walk down the hall and spend $2,500 for fillers and neurotoxins. So people prioritize what is important for them. And what that says is that you've not made the case to light up the possibilities for them. They do not leave convinced, enthusiastic. They may have issues about your competence. They may get subtle vibrations, subtle vibes about the quality from little things like going in the bathroom and seeing it's messy, or seeing the staff stressed out. All of that contributes. That ambience, I think, is really important in the cash pay healthcare setting, particularly in aesthetics. So, and the other thing, here's another barrier that comes up, and that is you never want to make decisions with your patient's money. You don't know what's important to them. You don't know what they value. You may think, oh my goodness, $3,000, $3,500 for all of this product and these fillers and these topicals. That may feel like a lot to you, but you can't put a price tag on that for your patient. So you never make those decisions. You lay out the options, you lay out the choices, you put forth the possibility to them, and you let them make an intelligent, informed decision.
That's a very interesting framing. You are not there to make the decision for them, but rather to uncover the possibilities.
Exactly. You don't make decisions with your patient's wallet.
Okay. Now, Dr. Tager, you spend your life around technically brilliant injectors, genuinely world-class hands. So why is it so often that exact same person, the most clinically gifted one in the building, who turns out to be the weakest one in the consult chair?
They may or they may not. And I think there's a spectrum. There are some magnificent injectors who are magnificent communicators, who resonate and take the time and go through things and have an aura of confidence and relaxed competence. So I don't know that you can make that judgment. But I think if you look at what drives people into certain professions or doing certain things. I don't want my surgeon necessarily to be a brilliant communicator and sell me on possibility. I want him to be excellent at, the craft of surgery. So I will cut a lot of people a lot of slack if they're very good. I mean, I don't need them to have a wonderful world-class personality. They need to project confidence. They need to lay out that possibility for the patient. But they need to really, certainly for the higher ticket items, have someone in the practice who is the closer. Who, I don't believe that most people, most injectors, most practitioners should discuss money. I think they should frame up a rough treatment plan and then hand that off to someone else who can spend time and energy and relate to that person, who's probably has enough time to develop some rapport, who knows about them, who can relate to them, and that person presents the treatment plan and closes the case. The really good injector, who's a fabulous injector, who gets great results, they should be doing that all day long. That's what they're good at. That's what they love to do. That's what will build the practice. They don't necessarily need to be, hopefully, the closer. So that, I think there's some duties that need to be divided up in a practice, and that's certainly one of them. Now you certainly see that with the surgical side.
Why do you consider it to be so important to divide that duty, the finance versus surgical?
I think that, look, I've been in some of the larger practices. The great injectors should inject. That's what they should do. Now, if you are a smaller practice, then you got to do it all. I mean, if you are a nurse practitioner, licensed in a state, and you're doing injections, and you're starting out, and you don't see that many patients, you're not crazy busy, then you do need to be able to develop that skill set. So when you hand it off to someone, if and when you get bigger, you hand it off to someone. So you do need to do that in the initial stages. But I do think that for What is your time worth? Your time is, if you look at the cost and the money you have to generate per room per hour, you're better off, if you're a great injector, injecting, and have someone else do the informing and the treatment plan. But if you're just starting out, you got to do it all.
Closing truly is a full-time role in itself.
If you think about it, you have to think it through as understanding the patient journey. And that journey begins when the phone rings, when they call up your office, and whether that person is able to be so charming and so engaging and so positive that they suck that person right through the airwaves into your reception area. And it begins with how they're treated, what they see, what they smell, what they hear. So all of these are stages along a journey. And I think you've got to become excellent at all of them, because they're all potential holes where patients fall through the cracks. So the consultation is one part of the patient journey. The follow-up, the Q&A, all of those are pieces in that journey.
Now, your art of the healthcare presentation system has 20 teachable skills in it.
Yeah, that was a piece I did some years back. And that's work to help practitioners be great on stage or be great on camera. It was interesting before COVID, we were all getting together. People aspired to be on the podium. COVID hit, you had to learn skills, one to the camera. But now that things are shifting back to these larger meetings, I'm seeing many, many more practitioners who want to be on stage. They have a message. They want to get that message across. So I do a lot of work with Informa. I work in terms of the integrative aesthetics track for the aesthetics show and for the Miami meeting, AMWC. And we're increasingly seeing more people say, hey, I want to be on the podium. I want to speak. So those skills, podium skills, they were never taught to us. I mean, when you went through your training in medical school or a PA or an NP or you a nutritionist, you were never taught how to deliver a powerful, impactful presentation that moves people. So that was a piece I did a number of years ago. It's still good to this day. It still has the tips and the hints. I have a book called Enhance Your Presence that's available on Amazon. And that is a nice small little compendium that summarizes really the 20 skills and walks people through what they need to know about how to conquer presentation anxiety, how to not be nervous, but to channel that energy, the power of the voice, pausing, organizing a presentation, gestures, body language. All of those are learned skills. And those are the same skills that if you had a practice and you're doing a little workshop on a Saturday and you're inviting 20 patients and prospects in, those same skills apply whether you're talking to 10 people, 20 people, or 1,000 people. They're the same skills.
What's the one skill that our listeners can install across their team this month? The one that moves the needle most in a live consult? If you had
in a live consult, you know what I think it is? It is to shut up, to breathe, to make eye contact, to mirror body language, and tell me what's going on. Now, usually you give them a mirror, what do you like, what you don't like. But then I think there's a step beyond that. Tell me a little bit about your life, what you're doing, what you'd like to change. If we were to change this for you, how would that affect your energy, your confidence, the way you project yourself. So all of that has to do with really getting that relation. I'll give you a strange little example. So you can detect the energy from the heart with an electromagnetometer 3 feet from the body. You can't detect the brain waves because they're encased in bone. But the heart energy can be measured 3 feet from the body. So that means when you are standing, you are within 6 feet, you have the capacity to create resonance. Resonance is in fact when the heart energy of two human beings, I know this is a little bit out there, but I live in California, but there's real good science here. But the concept of resonance is what you're trying to achieve. And if you're doing nothing else, you're breathing, you're slowing down, you're making eye contact, you're mirroring body language, and you're trying to come from a place of genuine service, and you're trying to create for them those possibilities in their minds and hearts. And then that just happens. You'll notice that there's something that changes in the middle of the interaction. Something just seems to be like, wow, yeah, we really hit it off. I really like her. She really understood what I was saying. I think she's going to be back. She's in. She loves our practice. We got along really well together. So that's the concept of resonance, and it is a little California, but it really is. It's grounded in science.
It's truly, I mean, these are some of the things that you kind of feel intuitively.
Yes.
But since we don't have like a framework on how to really execute it or how to really think about it, or even to understand if it's proven or not, we just kind of overlook it and just focus on what we can see, the numbers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
try to hit.
exactly. And you have to go beyond the numbers. I mean, look, I think the numbers are important. When I was running practice management for A4M some years ago, I tell you, I lost some friends. Let me tell you why. I would do these workshops, with large groups, and I'd say, hey, who would like to volunteer to let me call your practice? And I will put it on the speaker so all of us can hear, 100, 200 people in the room. And this is how I lost friends. Doctor's office, can you hold? I don't know. We just got that device. I don't know anything about it. Yeah, but I'm sure it's going to be good. So that's the first place that, in fact, we lose people in this patient journey. So And part of that has to do with training. Part of it has to do with having happy people. Boy, there's nothing like having happy people in a practice who believe and trust you. And I also believe that we don't have enough affirmation of the clinicians. Dr. Smith, he's so wonderful with his hands. Our injector, Jenny, she's so fantastic with her hands. She does such a brilliant job. And she'll use just the right don't worry about the cost. Our prices are in line with everybody else. She'll use just the right amount in just the right places to get you that beautiful natural result you want. Can I schedule you for this Thursday morning or Friday afternoon? I mean, and we don't hear enough of that. We just don't hear enough of that.
It's truly one of the most underrated roles in the practice. I had I think it was Jay Shore, who another podcast guest a couple of weeks back, that mentioned that the front desk team member is usually like the director of first impressions.
Yes, exactly right. That's Jay and I go way, way, way back. We're really good buddies. We see him all the time on the courses, and that's right. We called that person the director of first impressions. And it's interesting. I called an office the other day, and the front desk was so fantastic. The woman who answered, she was cheerful and bright and helpful. And so I talked to the owner of the practice, and I said, I have to tell you, please praise her because she did an amazing job. She was so upbeat. You could hear the upbeat nature in her voice. But that's another important thing. I did a book many, many years ago called Working Well with Margie Blanchard. And her husband's a one-minute manager. And the concept was always to catch people doing something right and praise them right then and there. So she went and she heard what I said, and she went and she praised the front desk and said, that was Dr. Tager on the phone, and he said, you just did an amazing job. Thank you so much. You're so important to the practice. So if you catch people doing things right, that really creates a nice, healthy culture.
Now we're going to take a quick pause here. Dr. Tager just handed something pretty rare, a teachable skill you can install across your whole team by Monday. That's his entire premise. Presence isn't a personality, it's a system you can build. And here's where most owners stop short. They'll install a system in the consult room and leave the first consult, the one that may happen on their video, their reel, their bio page, completely unbuilt. So flawless presence in the chair doesn't help if your digital presence is already sending the patient elsewhere. And that's the gap our sponsor, Echo Marketing, closes. Their complimentary marketing strategy session is a 60 minutes with the senior strategist who shows you what your presence actually looks like to a high value patient online. So the people that we are talking about and teaching you to close are the ones that walk in to begin with. So go ahead and book your consult at businessofesthetics.org/MSM. That's businessofesthetics.org/MSM. It's a completely complimentary meeting for our listeners. So Dr. Tager, let's talk about the 4 most expensive words in aesthetics. Let me think about it. That's actually 5 words. The instant a patient says that, most providers either fold or start quietly discounting. In that exact moment before they've left the room, what do you actually say back?
I affirm the patient. I say, absolutely, this is a big decision. We need you to be completely comfortable with this. If there's more information you need, if I can show you more before and afters, if we can break this down and maybe start, rather than a larger treatment plan, to start with something very small and actionable. So I think you acknowledge that. You acknowledge the fact that people have issues and fears and doubts. And you ask, is there any questions that you might have, any concerns that you didn't get addressed? And you might surface something, I've got this wedding in 6-8 weeks from now, and I'm really afraid that I'm going to be bruised. Great. Well, bruising, what we found is that most people don't bruise, and those who do bruise are totally resolved over a 3-week period of time. So you will have plenty. Plus, we will work with you to make sure your nutrition is really excellent. So you have all the vitamins and minerals you need to heal quickly as we help to remodel your collagen. So you take that objection and you start turning it around to focus on the features and benefits of your practice. So here we've now taken that down and said, we're going to work with you nutritionally to make sure that you're going to get the best new collagen you can possibly get. And people say, So those are just little pieces. Now, look, my whole raison d'etre is integrative aesthetics. That's my latest book, my 12th book. I've been advocating that for 40 years, that we need if we really want to create beauty, it has to also come from within. So we have to look at diet and hormones and gut health and so many of the internal factors. So I also believe that that's one of the major ways practices will distinguish themselves in the future. So when that person leaves the office, said, and let's say it's a woman and she goes to a book club, as my wife would do, she said, when I met with my aesthetic practitioner, she talked about my diet and my nutrients, and they had someone who could help me with my hormones, or she made it a referral to a doctor that would help me with my hormones. So I think that is really critical, because so much of there's looking good, but there's feeling good, energy, vitality, and you're not going to get that glow if you don't have good circulation. You're not going to get that glow if you don't have good tissue health. So why is it? I ask practitioners all the time. You talk about the best injectors. They do the exact same, or the best surgeons. They do the exact same procedure on two different patients. One of them heals magnificently, looks really great. The other has delayed wound healing. It's swelling continues. The redness continues. And pardon my French, but that's a condition called PPP, piss poor protoplasm. They don't have the tissue nutrients that they need in order to make the new collagen. They don't have they don't have the vascular health in that tissue. So one of the things that I really like is that the GLPs ones, 60s to 70% of the med spas in the United States are doing GLP-1. That means they have crossed the Rubicon. Crossing the Rubicon means they have gone from just outside in, now they're doing inside out. So once you start doing that, if you take that to heart and you want to do that ethically and honestly, then you are in the realm of looking at nutrition, at lifestyle, at exercise, at nutrients, at hormones, all of these things, at gut health that are necessary to create well-being from inside out. And so that's been the work that I've been doing for the last long time. And I'm really gratified now to see that we're seeing more and more practices. When I speak at aesthetic conferences, I ask for a show of hands who's doing some blood work, some nutrition work, some lifestyle counseling, some hormone work, some peptides. And we're seeing this crossover to inside out meets outside in.
That's great. That's great news. I mean, the outcome is going to be
The outcome is so much better.
so much more better. So, Dr. Tager, recently, more and more real consultations now happen before anyone else sets the foot in the building. Video calls, Instagram reels. How do you manufacture that same in-room presence through a camera lens?
Yeah, it's really interesting. First of all, I've got a chapter in my latest book about personas, and you have to decide who you want to be on camera. I've got two of my friends who are fabulous facial plastic surgeons. They both get incredible results. One of them is dancing through life and encouraging her patients and doing fun, creative things and literally dancing in skits. The other is very seriously and somberly answering questions, and etc. Both get phenomenal outcomes, but they are night and day in the persona in which they project. So what you have is the realization that people want to see who you are. They want to get a sense for you. So what that means is you have to have a level of authenticity, and that's what comes through your authenticity. You've got to, whoever that person is inside of you. I mean, I look at the personas of presenters and what they show on video. And, you know, if I had to describe them, there are adjectives I put to each of them, but they're each unique. You know, I try to come across, you know, I'm not going to be dancing on camera, although I can dance from the old days. I'm going to come across as trying to instill, again, these possibilities for practitioners to be better, etc. And, you know, and usually what you're looking at is a mix on camera. So you're doing a little bit of a reveal about yourself and who you are and what makes you tick. So people say, oh, I love that picture of you with your dog. You know, that reel with you and your dog last week. I love seeing you in your garden last week. Mm. And there's that piece of it. So they see you as a whole person, which is a really wonderful thing. But then you're also giving them information and guidance, short, sweet, to the point, with a big hook. I'll bet you're confused about what vitamins and minerals to take to have glowing skin. Let me fill you in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. More questions? Come see me. So you've got that hook. You've got a little bit of, you're doing little persona stuff. You're doing some education. You're showcasing your practice and the people in your practice. Now, the other thing that I've advocated forever is anytime a patient gives you a spontaneous compliment, you very simply say, Roberta, listen, thank you. That means the world to me. You know, we work so hard to get these kind of results for our people. And would you be willing to just say that same thing on camera? I'll have our office manager come in and just, say what you just said to me on camera. We'd love to be able to use that. Thank you so much. Now, that testimonial is worth $1 million because it's from the heart, it's authentic, it's spontaneous, they're not coerced. Now, if they say yes, we shoot it, you have them sign a release. If they say no, you say, no problem, leave us a good review, and thank you so much. And if you've got any of your friends, family members, we'd be honored to take care of them as well. Either way, you win. But you do that when you hear a spontaneous compliment. And you get those moments. And those moments are many, many, many times more valuable than anything you're going to say. When a patient says, she was amazing. I came in, she totally transformed how I look. I feel 10 years younger. I went to my reunion. And so just make sure to catch those things, but catch them on video.
Amazing. That just gives a next level of validation to anyone who's watching, right?
That's it. Exactly. And that confirms for them that they made the right decision coming to see you. That's what it does. And it sort of takes the resistance out. Because there's somebody who's kind of like me. There's a guy like me, or a woman like me, or a young girl with lips that I love my lips. She's such an artist. They're just so perfectly filled. And that's worth a lot.
That's indeed worth a lot. So, Dr. Tager, where can our listeners find you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so, I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find there. My Instagram handle is @DRMTager. I'm just starting to do some TikTok work, but I don't even, I've got one of my people who helps me do that. But those are the two ways, the best ways, LinkedIn or @DRMTager. And if I have another... they could also get me a contact@drtager.com. Contact@drtager.com. And I would encourage people to go to Amazon. I've got a book called Feed Your Skin Right and another one called Integrative Aesthetics. And those are both easy reads because they're big text, pictures, graphs, a lot of white space. So both of those are, I think, helpful, particularly the integrative aesthetics, because it is essentially a practice management book on how to incorporate new products and services, wellness products and services into your practice.
Dr. Mark Tager, thank you very much for spending
My
your time
pleasure.
with us.
Okay, take care. Thanks.
So as we wrap up, if you're looking for some clarity on the digital side of your practice, Echo Marketing is offering our listeners a complimentary 60-minute strategy session, simply a one-on-one conversation to help you map out a real high-value patients. You can easily grab a time that works for you at businessofesthetics.org/MSM. That's businessofesthetics.org/MSM. I'm Don Adeesha. This has been the Business of Aesthetics podcast. Thanks for listening. Keep on leading.